Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. I'm your host, Taryell Simmons. We got Shola in the building wearing the lovely royal blue. For those of you who are listening, make sure you go to the YouTube episode so you can see this lovely t-shirt that Shola is wearing. Shola, tell the people about these lovely shirts here.
Okay, so when you interact with myself and Taryell, you notice that we're like massive Afrofuturists. So what we wanted to do was create, designs that reflected that also reflected Rise Urban Nation. As you can see, that is our backsplash here or our backdrop. And
what we like to call it here the black drop, the black splash.
The black drop. I'm sorry, I'll be using that from now on. Okay, yes. And basically, the way our society is about, masculine, feminine energy coming together, making things better. That's essentially what this shirt kind of represents. There's another version of the shirt that has actually the three primary people in run, which is myself, Taryell, and Anne. And then that's a design that you actually see on our journal, the Rise Urban Nation journal. That's like what's on there. Then we have an Afrofuturism version of that design that you can get as a poster. It's pretty cool. It has like this space thing going on at the back, and represents like all the things that Afrofuturism actually is. So yeah, so go check out our website, go on our store, and then see, pick out what you like, what you think.
Yeah. Make sure you guys get a copy of that along with your Rise Urban Nation journal as well. And in this episode, we're going to really talk about and dive into Afrofuturism, and some of the emblems that you see on the black drop, just so you can understand what the meanings are of it and the symbols behind that. But let's start with this. Shola, can you define Afrofuturism and what it means to you personally? Because I know we had our dear brother, what's our brother who came on?
Kamo.
Why am I forgetting? Kamo. Yes. Yes, he came on, I think season 1, and he talked about Afrofuturism, and that's when some people probably first heard of it. But break it down in your own terms. How do you define Afrofuturism, and what does it mean to you personally?
Of course, I'll be happy to. To me, it's basically this like growing movement, that explores the intersection of Black culture, history, technology. And when I say culture, I mean art, music, fashion, all them forms, right? And creating a vision of the future that's really rooted in the experiences of us as a people of African descent, basically. So, for me, being a creative, I can connect with that with my mode of artistic expression. So that would be graphic design. So like everything you see about Run, the black splash, our t-shirts, when we design, our posts, all of those are reflective for me, in my own way. That's how I can connect to this movement, right? So with Taryell, it's basically with his spoken word, okay? And then like, how he does work in the DI space. And then together, we are looking at it from not just a historical sense, but also how do we get even people within all people of African descent to really embrace what it means, to take what we've gone through and then bring it as a collective pot, and then now use that to express ourselves. So yeah, so that's basically how I see it for us. I mean, I don't know, T, like what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I think of and some of the examples that you listed, and I don't know, my mind was going back to even how, like, when you go back to the pyramids that's in Egypt, how even Afrofuturism is embedded in our history. Like when you look at those pyramids, they have not been replicated, and people still look at it like, how did these people build something to this magnitude without the technology that we have today? And that's an example of, for me, how Afrofuturism is in art, literature, music, or even some of the films that you see that have influenced you, or what you find particularly compelling. When you think about films, what's some films that come to mind for you?
Oh, like, I mean, right off the top of my head, of course, it's gonna be Black Panther. And then Get Out is another one. And
Nice.
Nope is another one. I mean,
and just in those alone, like even in the art of that and the literature in that and the music, like there's so much Afrofuturism it touches like everything
Mm,
that we do. So I mean, I
no.
love that.
Yeah, even in
Uh,
music, when you look at the evolution of music in terms of sound, we have always been there, right? We were thinking about the next sound, right? Like I'm like an 80s baby, man. But I love 80s music. Like the kind of the sound that came from that era is literally what I listen to, when I'm working, like when I want to focus. So, what we did with different instruments, like, and then people like Timberland, like literally using, the beat from his own, mouth, and using like all of those things to create something. And then the likes of, Dr. Dre, and how they've like really changed how we looked at music, right? To the point where it can be more inclusive, I would say,
ooh.
that's
Look,
it.
wait. Because me and Shola, we always have conversations about this, and then we're gonna go. I want to go into the emblems in just a little bit, but I wanna dive in a little bit deeper on that because I think Afrofuturism helps reimagine blackness or Pan Africanness, and when you think about that, in what ways do Afrofuturism reimagine blackness and challenge the existing power structures currently today?
Yeah, I love that you asked me that, because so when Black History Month is about to wrap up, yeah, and when you look back on Black history, it's clear that we were oppressed and that we were exploited, right? And as this is a consistent theme throughout the centuries. And then we had our successes, our achievements erased, right? But it's like, even when you deal with a typical, with someone from African descent, there's this natural sense of pride that we have. People have tried to break it, but eventually, when we come out of any kind of trauma, that sense of pride just remains. That is what you tap into. That makes you innovative, right? That motivates you. That makes you different, right? That makes you see a solution where people just see problems, or where someone has created a problem. Yeah, we can literally see a way out. So from slavery to colonialism to modern day racism, like we as a people have faced so much discrimination, preventing us from achieving equality and justice. And despite that, even when we are left on our own, or left for dead, we still create something. So I will have to give like a round of applause to our African American brothers and sisters, because they've created even the offshoots of African culture. There's a massive new thing that ended up again on our continent, that we've now diffused into the next phase of music, fashion, art, right? And now art, even back on the continent now, we're now looking back on the traditional ways we did things. These were like removed from us, right? Not only from the ones that were taken, but also us on the continent. Right, I was talking to an artist recently, and she's into ceramics. When you think ceramics, you think about what you see here, your mugs, your plates. But man, I have seen things like, pots that are used for cooking, pots that are used for tie dye, how they actually go through that whole process. That's very soul cultural. Like, bro, the experience is unreal. And she's taken that and created a modern form of ceramics using the old ways we did things. And when you think about it, it's like, I was so happy she was doing that. And when she told her story, and that, like, artists always have this backstory that they have to develop. And I thought about the things in the museum that people are paying lots of money to go see, and then like you have a situation where the ones that are even keeping them in there are supposedly saying that we didn't make those, like, no, that we couldn't have done those
Mhm.
things. We didn't work with
Yeah.
bronze, or we didn't make pottery, or hair, paraphernalia, or things like that, or the fabrics and all of that. What
Mhm.
makes what gives you the authority to say that about a group of people, right? But the thing
Mhm.
is, what I love about us is that our memory is like a tortoise. You could take the language, you could take, the way we, like, our cultural habits, but you can't take that away. You
Yeah.
just can't. And that, I feel somehow that because of the trauma, I feel like we were gifted with a situation where it passed in our blood, right?
Mhm.
And it comes through shining. I mean, look at how braiding has changed to this massive thing in the
Mhm.
Americas that started on the continent, right?
Yeah.
So there's just so
And
much.
I mean, there's even some history to that. So like,
Yeah.
you know, in e- braiding from slavery culture, it was the way that they used to develop maps and communication in people's hair. because they weren't allowed to communicate to each other. And so the ladies could look at the hair and the way it was braided to communicate, and then also create maps on different escape routes in US. And so, like, just thinking about that, how even as a people, when we were at our lowest, the level and ability to innovate, to survive. Like, imagine if we weren't in survival mode, what we could do if we were in just thriving mode, like the level of creativity and abundance that we could create. And so, that's why I love how Afrofuturism, if we, yes, know your history, know your roots, so you can have the strength and the capability to understand where you come from, not and don't just start from slavery like they start us here in the States. Go all the way back, right? So you know the genius behind everything that made you who you are today. But I think it's important when we look at how we infuse this in the future, especially with technology. And me and you
Oh
talked about the
yeah.
technology piece, and
Hmm.
and when you think about the technology piece, what role does technology play in Afrofuturism, or in Afrofuturist works, and how does it shape the way we think about the future and our relationship with it?
Man, bro, I just have to say, bro, you're on a roll with these questions today. You're hitting my spirit. So I'm gonna mention like this writer, Octavia Butler, and the writer said basically, the only lasting truth is change, right? His work, his words basically speak to the idea that change is inevitable, right? And it's up to us, right, to shape that change in a way that benefits us, right? So in the case of us as a people, right, people of African descent, this means using technology and innovation. What was like stripped from us or stolen, or like we were silenced. I mean, look at just Jack Daniels alone, right? Using technology and innovation to create a sustainable and equitable future. Because you know what? That is actually our way. It's not, wealth is not just for the one, it's for the many, it's for all. That is how we in Africa think. Like, you cannot have a rich man in one neighborhood and everyone isn't benefiting from that. That's just not possible, right? We have this, like, the way a palace is, yeah, and around the palace, everything looks great, and like people are benefiting from that.
Yeah.
That's essentially the system that works. And when that works, everyone benefits. Everyone becomes a soldier of that community because they know what they're benefiting and getting from it. But when you're not getting anything from your community, you don't see any need to defend it. You don't see any need to be loyal to it or to develop anything that's going to benefit it at all. You just say, okay, who's the highest bidder? Which it seems to be what has happened to us a lot, right? And there are lots of Pan-African like thinkers, and that really, what they really push is what I basically just said, right? Shaping that change that will benefit us. So that's what technology really is, a gift, I believe, and I feel it's like the fastest way any marginalized group can move forward. Once you embrace it, once you embrace what the way it needs to fit your community. For instance, we are going nuclear when it comes to hair, beauty and hair, right? Products. Finally, we are getting our products in the stores made by us for our hair, because that's what we were doing. When we take care of our hair, like us that wear wigs and braids, what is going on underneath has to be taken care of differently. We can't use what was in the mainstream before. We had to create our own
Yeah.
products at home, right? I remember, like, I used to smell like coconut oil all the time once I did my hair, because that's what my grandma would get the raw coconut, make the coconut oil, yeah, and then that's what we'll use. If I had any skin issues, she had this pomade she
Uh-huh.
used to make from palm oil, right? These are the things that we have innovated based on our own need. In fact, if we just even focus on our needs alone,
Hmm.
yeah, and just focus on like our own stuff, because what you now see is that because of our number that is being taken
Hmm.
advantage of, right, and the fact
Hmm.
that we are a consumerist group, yeah, we're not really producing. And then you find other ethnic groups taking advantage of that, what we need, because we don't
Mm.
understand, like, we don't have the tools, the resources to make these things. But times have changed, right?
Yeah.
A lot has changed now, where people are they're waking up and they're seeing that, hey, you know something, all they really need is XYZ. Let me provide that.
Mhm.
Oh, it looks like they don't even know how. Let me create an incubator. right? So that they can
Mhm.
figure out how these things work, and then they can figure out how to plug into the supply chain system to do certain things. This is what that Afrofuturism is about.
Mhm.
We've been never in a better time to really achieve this. It's not about just
Yeah.
spaceships or things like that. No, it's about like right now we have this moment where we can shape what that change would look like. We've got great examples like what Ryan Coogler has done with Wakanda.
Mhm.
Yes, it's a film,
Mhm.
but watch the film properly with no biases at all and see the
Mhm.
messages that are coming through there.
Yeah.
See, he's
Yeah.
literally showing that if we didn't have any issue with if colonialism, slavery didn't happen, guess what? That's where we would be. Even
Mhm.
AI, when you ask AI to give us visual renditions of what Africa would be like or Africans would be like without all those, without slavery, imperialism, and colonialism, man, we are like way ahead. And that's the
Yeah.
thing we have to look at. That's the fear. But see, we
Yeah.
as a people are not like everybody else who steals for themselves. We believe in
Mhm.
sharing. We believe in collaboration. That is our natural state.
Yeah.
That is
Which
our
I think is a
natural
beautiful
state.
thing.
When we're
Mhm.
healthy mentally, we've healed our traumas. That is the point you get to. That is the
Mhm.
place you are. That's where you were. That is who you are as a people. People of African descent, that is who we are as a people. We're not greedy, we're
Yeah.
not selfish. That's not our way. And if we can
Mhm.
fully embrace who we really are, really, as we were made, I can't even imagine. Like, I'm mind blown at what we could literally do. And that's why
Yeah.
Black History, Month, I believe, is so important, because when you go back and learn how things were done and what we were, who we were, how we were before we got interrupted, it really gives you perspective of
Mhm.
what we need to do next, on how we need to shape our futures.
Yeah, and I think there's plenty examples of it, like you
Mm.
said, between the Wakanda movies and then, we've seen some groups. I mean, even though it's maybe for capitalism or financial game, like different companies, like for example in Target, like the hair stuff. We got the hair section, we got
And
the black
Walmart,
section. I mean, remember I was just walking through. I sent you the picture
yeah, so that
yesterday. I
picture
was like,
yesterday,
oh,
yeah.
I'm in Target and there's a whole section of Black Girl
Oh,
Magic.
yeah, they're doing
I
a
was
good
like,
job. They have an
I was like,
incubator. So if you
what?
guys don't know, they do have an incubator that is very supportive of our community. Like, I mean, I walked the other day and I saw this lady, her brand. I was so tripped because it
Mhm,
had a lot to, like, basically it looked similar to our Black Splash, and she didn't just
mhm,
have like cutlery and clothes. She also had food. So they had to put
mhm,
like a pop up thing for her next to the freezer
mhm,
section so that you could see also that there was food. And I'm like, this
mhm.
is so us, man. Like, when you walk into
Yeah,
like a Black person's home or African's home, from the food to the clothes they're wearing to everything they like, the furnishings, all of that, you're gonna see, and paintings, you're gonna see reflections of the
mhm,
culture, right? So I just thought that,
yeah,
oh, this is an experience right here, and I felt so good. I think I took videos and pictures of it. I don't know if I posted on social
yeah.
media, but I was so tripped.
And I think ever since George Floyd, we've
Mm,
seen a lot of companies getting more
mm,
involved with the social justice movement.
yes.
And when you look at this, because you've been in the States now since that's happened, since Donald Trump, since the emergence of George Floyd, to Black Lives Matter, to more DNI and more consciousness around these social justice movements. When you think about that, how does Afrofuturism intersect with other social justice movements?
It intersects when we are intentional about it. So it's not just a buzzword, right? It's basically, I have to say what I said before again. It's it's shaping how we want a future to be. But the biggest part of that is this mindset thing, bro. And I know you agree with me because that is why we wrote the journal the way we did. It was basically to build you up from where you were broken. And that's a major thing when it comes to working with social justice, right? You know, social justice is an ongoing thing for us that were oppressed. But when the oppressors decide to take a seat in fixing these things, in being aware of what they were invisible to, or what was invisible to them, sorry, that takes a new meaning. However, you have to understand that if whatever you want to do isn't working or you can't find a way to plug in, you need to remember again what has happened every time our group has tried to be successful. You know, and bro, you can give more examples, but for me, the primary one I know, and that's because it became well publicized, was what happened in Tulsa. Again, I believe I just discovered that, somewhere in New York there was a mass grave as well dug out, because I said, like when I look at history and some of the things I had seen like in film and in documentaries, we were doing well at some point. What happened? And I think I asked you this question like last year, and you gave me like a quick synopsis. Yeah. How do we ensure that those major events, because that's what I call them, there are major events that have happened that have let a group of people believe that there's no point doing this thing? Or even if they're going to be involved, they have to be looking over their shoulder thinking someone's about to come and burn it down. And Afrofuturism kind of gives us a sense of security because of the technology element, because of innovation. And innovation means we're in a point now in time we can claim it. You can get a patent, right? You can get a trademark. You can collaborate with bigger brands now to infuse your culture into things. And that's where, like, I feel like the social justice element is being actualized finally. I think it could be faster. I think it could be better, but that would mean every single industry needs to have its own manifesto on how it's going to achieve that. And that hasn't happened. That's happened now in, fast moving consumer goods. Yes, like Target, Walmart. It's happened in fashion, thanks to the work that Naomi Campbell is doing, right? It's happened in music as well, which is great. It's always happened in music, actually. Have you noticed that anytime people see us is a cultural thing?
Yeah.
But it needs to start happening
And
now.
that's why in the US it's like we are the culture. We
Oh
are the
yeah,
culture.
even literature.
And our culture
Yes,
influences everything.
yes, yes. Even literature, because your culture is what you kept. That's what
Mhm.
remained. That's what is like. That's what echoes, no matter what the pain. Even in our
Right.
music, even when we worship a God that wasn't ours or a religion that wasn't ours, it's all in there.
Mhm.
And Afrofuturism brings that to the forefront. And when you bring that to the forefront, you see that there are things about us that people enjoy behind closed doors. Social justice just becomes that massive engine. The biggest issue, though, is the systemic stuff, things that are deep
Mhm.
rooted in the system. How do you begin to break that? Because to change the system, you either dismantle it or you build a new one,
Mm.
which is the hardest thing in this country today. Resistance to
Yeah.
change is the biggest problem. Resistance to change and the biggest problem. And remember what I said about what Octavia Butler had said. The only
Mhm.
lasting truth is change.
Yeah.
And that is change is the only way we can shape what's next. What we do today to shape
Mhm.
what's next. How intentional we are to shape what's next. How we don't carry the trauma from the past to shape what's next.
Mhm.
And it's like have if can you ask everyone 100% that have they really thought about what things could be if we were all better human beings? And when I say all, I mean all of us, everyone, the human race.
Mhm.
So that's like for me where I would like put social justice and Afrofuturism. It's just that key
Man, like,
thing.
when we think about the future of tech, and then when I think
Oh
about
yeah.
technology and how you evolve with technology, there's usually the updated version, right? So that
Yes.
it gets rid of all the bugs, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, sometimes there's a reprogramming. So like, how do we start to get rid of the bugs, reprogramming, so we don't take the trauma, learn from it, learn from those lessons, those bugs, but use something new, or reprogram, or upload the newest version of this software that allows us to kind of get into the next level
Hmm.
of this thing. um what are some When you think about the critics, what are some of the criticisms or challenges facing Afrofuturism, and how might it continue to evolve to respond to those critics and those critiques?
Hmm. That's a good one. Okay, so we just touched on Afrofuturism and how and social justice and how closely they're intertwined, right? So at its
Mhm,
core, this movement seeks to reimagine the future of Black people by using technology and innovation to create a more just and equitable society. Now, when we talk about criticism, we're targeting things like racism, inequality, oppression,
mhm,
and we're looking at full equality and justice, right? Where we
mhm,
use terminologies and ideas of Black excellence and how that rubs certain people, yeah, the wrong
mhm.
way for some reason,
Nah. Well, I mean, I
right?
see that as it's helping to expand to the larger
Mm.
conversation around representation, equity, justice in the world today. So I see that as a plus to me. I don't know.
It is a plus. However, like we need to also understand that aside from looking at our history, we also need to look at the world history too, and what
Mhm,
has happened in some societies based on even thinking about the future for themselves. Because for some reason, some ethnic groups believe that the only way they can move forward is by trampling on somebody else, right? So criticisms that I would look at would be something like, oh, you and I just had a conversation about this, right?
mhm.
Elitism. So people can argue.
We just had a fresh conversation about
We
that.
just did that. That Afrofuturism is elitist for some reason, yeah, and it focuses on the experiences of Black people who are educated, middle class, and have access to technology and resources, right? And it's like, are we actually talking? Say, but no, it's about transitioning people who are not in the class that they should be in the first place, right? Like when you look at and in classes, we talk about classism and how. For instance, a group of us in Africa we're classists, like, we are elitists, basically. And, even if it might seem that way, when you look into the heart of, we have a village system, basically. It takes a village.
Mhm.
That's how Black
Yeah.
people operate, right? And that was the
Yeah.
first thing that was broken during colonial era.
Intentionally.
Even at the time of slavery, because again, one of the things I do is make sure that during this month I make a note to learn something right new, and it's something that should be done all year anyway. But it's like, for me, it's
Mhm,
like, when you take a holiday, that's my holiday to learn something new. And
mhm,
seeing how a lot of slave trade progressed, even in the midst of that, let's say there was
mhm,
like a quibble between two villages or something, right?
mhm,
The spoils of war would usually be people, right? And one is it called prisoners of war. In some country, like even in today's world, those people go to prison, they get tortured or whatever, they just disappear into nothingness. But for
mhm,
us, they got absorbed into that the victor's village. Do you know what I mean?
mhm,
Right? And the ones that resisted, they end up sadly on the path to slavery. And you have to
mhm,
ask yourself that, that means if these people were not here, if we were even fighting, this is how we even do things. Oh yeah,
mhm.
join us, be part of our, tribe, right? And it's funny because I was thinking that if I even go and do my own tracing, like my ancestry, that would I find that maybe somewhere down the line, one of my ancestors came from a different part of Africa or something, because people always make fun of the us and my family about our noses, that we have like a different kind of nose, no African nose, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Our hair has like undertones of Arab hair, and I'm, well, there could
Mhm.
be.
Yeah.
My grandfather was really light skinned,
Right.
and then my grandmother was tall, like really like tall. She had she had the shape of an arm. Her hair was super long, like, and in my
Right.
head I used to think like, oh, that's true. We could have some of these things. And my father, he's traditional, yeah, well, like he even has tribal marks and
Mhm,
all of that, like that, like he's the shape and everything is typical Yoruba. So it's so interesting to think about these things in that way, but it's like in our society, how
mhm,
do we take these things and then embed them into making sure that elitism does not happen, does not occur? You don't have to oppress someone.
mhm,
In fact, there's a funny story here that there's a power generator in Nigeria that's used very small, and you know what it's
mhm.
called? I better pass my neighbor. Why do you have to have a product that's called that? Like, I've never understood that. I feel like, well, yeah, you're laughing. When I come to the table, I'm coming to you as an equal. It
Yeah.
is your attitude, your behavior towards me that will make me have to let you know that you are not playing with a baby here, that you're going to know my level. If I have to prove my level to
Mhm.
you in your behavior, in fact, that will maybe usually be the last time we interact with each other. But that's it. I'm not going to
Mhm.
try and oppress you continuously up with it unless you keep stepping in my space. So that's
Mhm.
something that we as a people need to be mindful of. Then something that a lot of people may not have heard, or a few people who have understand something called essentialism.
Mhm. Yeah.
So this is a criticism again that could come off where we can reinforce essentialist ideas about blackness. But
Mm.
that was something that was like, bro, I've always had an issue with the word black, and we just talked about this. I said, like, why is it everybody gets to be called something American, but when it's our group, everyone is like put out together into one lump, even in the forms, for goodness sake. Like,
Mhm.
I pick other because I'm like, I'm African, so I don't understand. And then if anything, I'm British. What am I gonna pick? Where do I fit in here?
Mhm.
And then in
Mhm.
forms in the UK are very different. It literally identifies your origin. But here they don't care what your origin is. I find that very odd.
Mhm.
Why can't I be Nigerian American? Unless I'm successful or I do something bad, then they're gonna like be
Mhm.
very easy. They're gonna look for where I'm from and then label it that way. Like, it's
Yeah.
very weird. Like, we need, like, even though we are embracing this black that, because we have been forced to do that, right? But
Mhm.
it's something that has been criticized, right? And it's like, how do we really, it really obscures the diversity of black experiences, I believe, and the complex ways in which we as a people have been shaped by colonialism, slavery, and other historical forces. Because you decided to
Mhm.
lump a group of people together from different parts of a continent and were too lazy to track who they were, their names, because a lot of people can track who they were down to the European continent, but many people can't do that
Mhm.
here. It's only thanks to certain companies that are making an effort to ensure and determine what tribes you're in. And to find your family, you would have to hope that the group of people in
Mhm.
Africa start putting their DNA up so that you can identify your relatives. That is
Mhm.
very saddening. And think about it. That is like, to me, I have an out. I know where I'm from. I can go down to the roots of my origins. And to know that someone that looks like me can do that, that is something that has forced our group here to really embrace the word black that was given to us. So that's
Mhm.
something that I feel like that essentialism that has to kind of be worked on. Then another one is commercialization. They're supposedly
Mhm.
saying that Afrofuturism can become overly commercialized. Well, with mainstream media and social issues, um, I believe that this has to be the way it goes. Just like how DEI became a trend. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
Or mental health has become a trend too, although it's an essential trend, right? And
Right.
then me also pushing founder wellness. Like, it seems the only way the first world can pay attention is if it's something is commercialized.
Mhm.
So it shouldn't even be a criticism in the first place. The next one, which I think is
Right.
very, very weird
So
to
so
me.
Imma add to that,
Yeah,
commercialize or capitalize.
commercialized.
And okay.
So for instance, the whole aesthetic of like political and social issues, like with this whole George Floyd thing, what happened when all these brands promised dollars? If you look at basically the campaign that we're working on, looking at how these dollars are spent, a
Mhm.
lot of it has been pushed through the capitalist machine.
Mhm.
So it's not like direct help,
Mhm.
right? And it's help that if you had generations of assistance and a leg up, you would understand and even know how to access it. But it looks like there have to be third parties involved. And I believe some brands have been
Mm.
smart about this. Third parties involved to really spread this help that is supposedly waiting for us sitting somewhere.
Mm.
And commercializing Afrofuturism, I believe, is not a criticism. It is a means to say, hey, here's what we're doing. Come and see what we're doing. Blah, 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 blah. Like, for instance, our t-shirt here,
Mhm.
right? It's literally, you see me on the street on an expo and I'm wearing this, you'll be like, oh, can you tell me more about that? These are conversational pieces. Because I
Mm-hmm.
cannot tell you how many times I've worn this shirt that people come up to me like, where did you get that shirt? That what does that mean? And this is not the only people that look like me, everyone. I
Mm-hmm.
like that. I want you to talk to me about this stuff. So if it has to be commercialized for us to have these conversations, I think it's good. Just like what happened with Black
Mm-hmm.
Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a situation where that's a criticism on someone that's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is the only means and tool we have to make a stand. No one knew about what was going on with George Floyd until it became televised on social media and it spread like wildfire.
Mm-hmm.
It's just being recorded. Something Will Smith said. All these things have been happening. It's just now being recorded.
Yeah. They
So
often said
so be it. If
the
we have to commercialize
revolution.
to get the attention we need. Mm, mm.
Yeah, there used to be a saying in the U.S. that the the revolution will never be televised. But they didn't realize we was gonna have cell phones in the future.
Oh, now you have to be careful doing things out there. And you saying cell phones is the next thing. I want to talk about
Yeah,
another criticism I've heard picking out as well with Afrofuturism, and that has been
yeah.
technological determinism. Ugh. And I'm thinking to myself, I for real? Okay, the future is tech. The future is AI and coding. So what are we supposed to do? Be sitting down, opening our mouths, and just eating air, and being the last ones to benefit? Like,
Yeah.
bro,
No.
honestly, like that to me is like, okay, well, I'm sorry. You know, like technology and innovation is what is now and next. You don't
Hmm.
embrace tech, you are dead.
Hmm.
The fact that we are like literally the only continent that didn't get to have an industrial era, the next step, we can literally skip that and move to tech.
Hmm.
So, an innovation that we already have on the continent that just doesn't
Hmm.
have the means that we still have to reach out to everyone out there to try and develop. So,
Yeah.
creating pathways for that to be something needs to happen. The fact that it's a big focus, Afrofuturism,
Hmm.
that is something. That is what it is.
That is what
That
it
is what
is.
it's going to be. And even Black Panther, as traditional and cultural as the movie was,
Hmm.
guess what? Technology was bang up in the middle. In fact, it was because of the tech and the resources that the rest
Yeah.
of the world is now trying to, dominate. And that's
Yeah.
in Wakanda
And
Forever.
in the
So if you
movie,
guys want to
the
speak
rest of the
more of that,
world
yeah.
benefited from this too, right? So
Thank you. Thank you. They did try by creating centers where, outreach centers. Like I don't
mhm.
want to spoil this for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, don't
come
spoil it.
on,
Don't spoil it.
you still haven't watched it, bro. Come on, this is shameful. This is not shameful. Like, no,
Look,
you get
I'm not the
the
only one,
next
okay?
episode that we record, you have to watch this thing though, because I don't care about spoilers anymore. I'm just gonna say what I have to say. You're making
But
me
what
not
about
talk.
the other people who haven't seen it? You want to spoil it for them?
Well, we would want them spoilers ahead, but I am having the conversation with you, so I should be able to be free now, bro. Come on,
I'm waiting
although we
for
did
the whole
miss it.
family for all of us to watch
I
together,
know, I
okay?
know, I know.
The,
We
the
then
schedule has
let's
not
make it
the
happen.
schedule has not
Let's
lined
have
up. The schedule, you know how
yes,
busy
let's
we
make
are.
that happen. Let's actually there was this event organized by is it AAA Ace here,
Right.
and it got sold out before we could get on it.
Yeah.
It was a kind of for a weekend,
At
and
least I watched the Woman King. At least I got that one
oh,
in.
that was good. Yeah, but that was really good. I was happy that because I saw some criticism about the movie, and then and I was like, why are people criticizing this movie? So when I watched it, I understood. But you see, I realized that human beings who have gone through a lot of traumatic experiences or live a traumatic life, they just can't see anything positive. They look for the worst thing that was like the
Mhm.
worst thing that was projected from the movie, and
Mhm.
they lose sight of what the movie is about. Same thing happened with
Nah.
with our journal as well. You're supposed to understand the intent behind something, and for Viola
Mhm.
Davis to do that movie, she's a very intentional actress.
Human being. Nah.
Yeah, very intentional. Actually, sorry. Thank you, bro. Human being. Everything she's doing now is so like there's something. Even like when you follow her on social media, I just
Mhm.
love how she's trying to bring so much to the forefront because this is the only way forward. You've tried everything, fighting, shouting, marching. The only way forward is unity, is embracing who we really are and taking that to the
Mhm.
next step, to the next level. And that's
Yeah.
so important. So for me, technological advancement is the most important aspect of Afrofuturism. But you know something? We are innovators and creators.
Yeah.
Everything we do, everything, yeah, full African descent do, if down to the food, down to reusing plastic in your house. Because when you open the fridge in a black person's household, the way we use plastic is different. Like there's some things
Yeah.
that even my daughter she would do, and I'm like, damn, that's a good idea. Like, it's just
Like
like
even
honestly, we
even
are not.
even down to the intentionality of our black drop, which has
Oh
intentionality.
yeah, bro, yeah. We have to go into
And look,
that.
we got to get into this before this episode is
Mm.
done. So let us talk about this black drop and the intentionality behind it and what it represents. Let's start with let's start with the dashiki. Tell them what did this
Of
dashiki?
course, you focus on
That's
that
my
one,
favorite
bro.
one. Well,
Actually,
it's right
guys,
there. It's the first
yeah,
one in the corner.
it's the
It's
first
the
one.
first
I
one.
know. So there's a funny story. When I first met Taryell, he was wearing a dashiki. And then every time we
Yeah,
were like at
true
some kind
story.
of event, I've never seen so many colors of this dashiki, but this, my brother has it all. So I said, okay, why do you, so I think I remember asking one time about the dashiki and then why he liked it, because it's funny enough, we on the continent make fun of that because it's a tourism item now. So we're
Uh-huh.
like, why is it that the first thing that most people see is this? And then I used to criticize it when I was on the continent because my ex then used to wear it all the time. But then when I was in fashion, I actually made clothes out of that print. So it was more
Uh-huh.
palatable, as you would say, because it was always only in the shiki form, and you only say small, medium, large. That's it, and that box shape.
Yeah.
When I saw it on you, the first I was it was a welcome home greeting. When you see that outside now, is different. When you live abroad, yeah,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I was like, huh, okay, he's embracing like his African side, which is very unusual here. So I like that. I didn't
Mhm.
get to say this to you the first time I met you, though. You were in the blue and white one that you have. And then
Yeah.
the more I got to know you and the more I saw you, it's like you're, I don't know if it's maybe because of our relationship, but it's like I felt more comfortable being Adesola, right, around
Yeah.
you. You felt more comfortable being Adekunle around me. So when we did our backsplash, I wanted to honor that first meeting. And
Yeah.
I wanted that to be a situation where I know other people probably feel the way I do. When you see that on someone, when you're in the middle of nowhere, where you don't feel quite yourself, you can
Yeah.
anchor into that person wearing that dashiki and be like, oh yeah, I've got somebody here that's from my place, that kind of thing. So that's basically why I put that
Yeah.
in there. I don't think I've ever told Terrell this, so this is probably the first time
No, that was the first time
exclusive.
I'm hearing it.
Yeah,
So all right,
to
let's
start
go
my
to the
review.
right. To the right of the
Yeah,
Sashiki, we have Africa. So
yes.
tell me
So
behind that one.
the whole purpose of Run, we are amplifying Pan Africans, and everyone of African descent, everyone. This is Run is for you. Run is about you. Run is, with you. That's basically
Mhm.
Africa is with you. No matter what you
Yes.
hear, no matter how, we may be, and you have to understand that Africans in diaspora are their goal is to thrive. It's not, they don't believe in survival. Oh. Survival is what we're doing on the
Mhm.
continent. We even thrive on the continent too. But what we didn't go through, is the survival, like the kind of survival that's back home is different. It's like,
Yes, it is.
okay, you have to yeah, it's you're looking for, like, everyone has to be self-sustaining in their own home. Where do I get
Yeah.
electricity from? Water, clean water. Work is not really an issue like that, but it's those basic things that are easily readily accessible here in the first world. So,
Mhm.
thriving is the key thing. And what we want is that once you think of Africa, you think of home, you think of, remember where you're from, remember that there's a group of people that the moment you land like this, you're treated like a king or a queen. That's what we
Mhm.
wanted to echo by making sure that we represented Africa in this map. That's
All right.
our world,
Next, we got
basically.
the lion.
Yes, that's representation of royalty. I mean, it's funny because we always say when a lot of these Westerners think about Africa, they only think about the animals there. We're like, okay, whatever, at least we've got the king, of the animal
Right.
kingdom, the lion, right? So
Uh-huh.
that is to remind us of our where we come, like the royal, that we're royalty, man. You
Right.
know, we're the first people that walked this earth. So you have to think about all these things, like in terms of like the Homo sapien form. So like one of the things is to really embrace this. More the way when you think that way, when you think like a king or a queen or royal or someone that is like royal, right? Not entitled
Mhm.
though, but the responsibility you have to your people, there's a different level that you operate on.
Mm.
Mm.
All right, let's go to the fist.
This was something I wanted, something in our black splash to represent the struggles of our people, especially our brothers and sisters
You know what this
in.
one reminds me of? It reminds me of the Olympics. When
Yeah, but this is
the
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 fist,
black
the
man
fist.
protested the
Yeah,
with the black fist
yeah. I
and
mean,
and,
it's
and
yeah,
with the
exactly. Yes,
black
Black
glove
Panther.
fist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Black
Black
Panther with the
Panthers.
black.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it kind of reminds me
that's
of.
what
But go
it
ahead.
is. It's yeah. I had to make sure that it was inclusive. And I see, bro, I follow your lead.
Yeah.
And this for me, this was the best symbol to represent that.
All right, the hut.
Okay. So the heart is basically representing real estate. That's a big thing. So if you ever meet any like African and that's still like really themselves, they will tell you that that's their aspiration to build a home, like a property
Mhm.
back home. In fact, that is every African man's aspiration to build a house. And me, I've even living in this country and seeing beautiful homes. I'm like, man, I really want to build my own house. So usually, like when I'm dating and stuff, and I say that already slices the people who are not going to be moving forward with me, because people are like, you want to build a house. Like once you say it with any sense of ridiculousness, we are not seeing each other again, because like the fact that you're not even thinking that way. I've grew up with men that thought that way, so I don't understand that why you don't
Right.
think that way too. Like no house satisfies you totally. So I want to build a house in a way that encompasses my culture, and the fact that I can build a separate dwelling next door for my mother, and not just a casita, because casita, there's still a door into my own house. Like I want my own my aging family to have their own space away, like near me but away from me. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking I want to buy land and all that. So we want you guys to think that way, right? Instead of being
Uh-huh.
forced into spaces that are supposedly like not like low economic standard. Aim.
Uh-huh.
Want you to aim higher when it comes to real estate.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. Next, we got the. Is this the African mask?
Yeah, it's a mask. Okay, it's about art. So a lot of our art forms, as you know, were stolen. It's not fair that some people only get to interact for the first time with African art in a gallery behind a glass that they can't touch. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot happening now. Has been happening over the last couple of years, and even maybe before I was born, its essence. But now it's in the forefront thanks to social media. Our art forms are coming back fully. Every
Mm-hmm.
form, like bronze masks, woodwork, war paraphernalia, all those kind of things that were there in the past that have been like decimated, which is usually what happens. I mean, there are archaeological digs here in the north of Africa, but have you ever thought about doing all those things in Africa? So art is the fastest way. Art and food are one of the fastest way that you can really connect with your culture. So it's just to make that effort to start seeing how is this being represented in so many ways across the diaspora.
All right. Love that. What do I call this sign? Is that
Oh,
the
this is the
less than
coding
greater
sign.
than?
This
Oh, is
code,
it a
no,
coding
no, no.
sign?
This coding,
Okay.
coding. So that's the sign. When you see that, you realize that it's coding and stuff, and represents like Bitcoin, and like that, because that's again is Afrofuturism element that we added. Being
Right.
ourselves, but also thinking about the future and what's next. Like we can't be lazy, man, about this. That if you're not, if your kids are not coding now, they're not gonna have a job in the future. So it's
Right.
that's basically like you need to start thinking about the technological advances we can have within our community, straight through from birth to death, like education, all of that. Relationships, everything. Is so intertwined in technology. But what are you doing as a person to be part of that movement?
Okay. Love that. Black woman with the afro.
Well,
I,
that's all
I,
that is
our
basically about the
queen.
Afro. Yes, our queens, when you support a when you support a woman, you support generations. And
Uh-huh.
there just seems to be this broken system within our dynamics, family dynamics. This needs to change. And we can't keep we're talking about it now because a lot of things I'm seeing now on social media, there are men speaking to this. And it's like no matter what happens when a man leaves the home, the woman is now responsible for all everyone in that home. It could be kids, it could be cousins, it could be parents. She has no choice,
Hmm.
and those who make the choice to even walk away from that too, they are just extremely traumatized.
Hmm.
I feel that this is a joint effort. We really need to work very hard to this brokenness and this system of people thinking that they need to have multiple, partners and all. I don't think that is working.
Hmm.
I really think that we need to become intentional as people about who we pick, to be with, who is going to be, in our lives. And because that can change the trajectory of your life. If you pick the wrong person, that's a whole decade you wasted.
Hmm.
So being a woman, I feel like there's a lot of responsibility that has been put on us, and then we've now embraced the masculine, and that's something that I feel like we're operating outside what our essence is. So
Hmm.
it's about honoring women in our communities, honoring us much better, seeing the potential of what will happen when a woman is empowered, not fear that power. And that's something that, why we put this image there. We also put that image there to remind y'all about your hair, your beautiful hair, your afros. Remind you all that this is, like this braids, Taryell's hair and the twist, like your
Right.
your dreads. Like, come on, like, that beautiful, beautiful, afro when it's combed out, or when we put gel in it, and then it's all like, we have those coils now. Honestly,
Yeah.
like our hair is so beautiful, so versatile. We should never have
Right.
hated it ever in the first place. Yeah.
So true. So true. Our hair is
Mm.
just amazing. It can do so many amazing things. Now, give me the breakdown on the number one with the circle
So
around it.
yes. So there's this saying, I'm Nigerian, so I'm biased, and we always say Niger, no, they carry last, which means we're never last place. That's like not even an option. But what I wanted to do was change that up and be like, Black people, we're not last place. We're, like, see yourself as number one in every situation.
Hmm.
Okay. Like, we're not here for crumbs. We're not here for the final piece of the cake. No, we're going to bake the cake. And the thing
Right.
is, if you notice what happens in our community, whatever we do as a people, we share with the rest of the world.
Right.
That's how we think.
Look, I
That's how
think the only time
leaders think.
the only time we are last is when we shut down the club.
And
And
the
then
last
everybody
survive.
come and enjoy breakfast.
Yes, 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 exactly. The last to arrive, the first, and or the first to leave, the last to leave the club. Oh my gosh, because you don't
Yeah.
want to go
Or the
home.
last to the party. That's that's
Let's
that's the only time we last.
Oh my lord, that's so true. Yeah. Oh my
Now give me
goodness.
the drum. Give me the drum.
Music, bro. Come on. Our
I know.
music.
I'm
Our
just we're
music
just
is the
going down
key
for the
to
people.
life. Man, like you can't like when people like everything about music, every genre, every aspect, everything. And the drums, that's what we bring to come on, we brought that to the table. Huh? And the strings too. Huh? I mean, knowing the history of music and how influential we were, it's
Right.
mind blowing. And
Right.
then there are genres that we supposedly were not part of when we started this stuff. No,
Right.
no music that's ours, man. That's
All right.
that's
So
that's like yeah, like the flow, the swag, the
right.
groove. I mean, like we change everything. Everything we do, man. That's like the music is
Right.
runs through us, flows
Right.
through us in all we
There's no,
do.
no no doubt about it.
Yes,
I'm gonna skip over that one because we've covered that
yeah.
one. The pottery.
That's actually food. So in the past
Oh, that's
in
food.
Africa,
Okay.
yeah, food used to be like stored, made, all of that in these clay pots, and then the dish next to it is sharing,
Hmm.
right? Food has
Mm.
become a major issue in terms of like our welfare and our health. So what I've realized when I look at soul food here, I smile a lot because I'm like, oh, you were trying to make this dish, and this is what you could find to make it. Oh, you did this, like the cornbread elements of what we call agege bread back home. There's so many.
Mhm.
It's I mean, there's a show I watch on Netflix that showed the intersection of and how everything
Oh,
evolved.
I think I know which one
Yeah,
you're talking about. Where
high on the hog.
he
It was high on the
yes,
hog, I
and
think.
they
Yeah.
yes, and he just the everything that was made in slavery because they had the
Yes.
straps. They
Yes.
recreated the best they could the essence of that with what they had for
Mm-hmm.
what they used to eat
Mm-hmm.
back home.
Mm-hmm. It's insane. Like it makes like I won't see I'm talking about it makes me smile so much because I'm so proud of us. Like as people, I told you, it's in the blood, man. So food
Mhm,
is so important in our culture. So if I know it's hard because if your palate has been used to food here, but there's
mhm,
so much variety in the diaspora. Africa
mhm.
alone, even just my country alone, Nigeria, man, where do you even start from? Every tribe has
Yeah.
its own dishes. Like it would just if you just decided to have a gastronomical experience, right? And
Mhm.
that was what you made as your holiday. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you
Look,
can't end in a
Africa is the
lifetime.
only place where you get like 4 or 5 different versions of jollof rice depending on the
Yes,
region, and they will all say it's the best from their region.
yes, we're not going down that road, but I appreciate every jollof rice I've eaten. I have to tell you that they're all different. There's no best, but I mean, there's some I might take more than the others, though, but there's no best. Everyone has it tastes great, all of it. Yeah, unless you
Ladies
don't
and
have to use
gentlemen,
onions
this will
and
be the
seasoning.
first
Oh,
ladies and
yeah.
gentlemen, this will be the first time you ever hear a Nigerian say that there is no best jollof rice. This will record this day in history.
That's
There's
so
no
funny.
best
No,
jollof rice.
there's
That
no.
is the British
Everyone's
side
one is
talking. The
good.
British
The only jollof, bro, the only
has
jollof that are not good is the one that they did not use onions, they did not fry the pepper well, and they did not use seasoning. Just don't give me that because that one is what some people decide to eat in foreign land that they say is because it's red, they think it's jollof rice. It's not so. It's tomato rice. So if it doesn't
oh,
have seasoning and it's not cooked well and not cooked on the fire and burnt at the bottom, we have problem.
oh
It's not. It's
man.
not. It's not real.
I
But every African rice I've eaten has been amazing.
all right, let's go over to the gold bars.
Oh yes, that is. We all know what that is. Getting
Yeah,
the
it's
pay.
wealth.
It is
Yeah,
about
there you
self
go.
worth. Okay, like we as a people, we're assets. Oh yeah, start milking yourself. Seriously, honestly, like the gold bar is that was the representation of money. It still is. Most countries,
Mhm,
when it comes to their reserves, they're not leaving it in cash or all this crypto or anything somewhere. It's that, right? So that is what secure your gold bars, right? Secure your wealth.
yeah,
Make that a
yeah.
priority. Like I was telling someone the other day that look, if you're coming to the US, make it your priority when you're thinking here, what's the fastest way and legit way for me to make $1 million? Because living in any other way or anything or not making a six-figure salary, you're going to start suffering. And that's just the thing. Like,
Mhm,
and when you start suffering, it's hard to get out of it, right? This
mhm,
economy is an economy where everyone, with the right resources and access can do well. So make that a priority. We actually touched on this in our journal where your network, even if like you're still trying to find work, make it a priority that you start building your network in that time until you get something, because it's within that network you will get actually
mhm,
the stepping stone job you need to move forward. Then keep building your network within that job or outside it. Like that's like something that should be primary. You should have 10 people in your network that can give you access to different things, and vice versa. Have the same thing happening for them to you. Your network is your network. So
mhm.
those gold bars,
Yeah,
man, are so important.
and just to remind people, especially if you're black living in America or Africans all across the diaspora, we are wealth.
Yes.
We have the natural resources that the whole world needs, and we provide to the whole world. I remember when we first did our podcast episode, one of the very first ones where you said we are an asset, and if you listen to Rise Urban Nations, the intro part, you'll hear Shola's voice like you're an asset, and something that we've embraced from a quote from Dr. Pamela Jolly. We as African Americans are the only people in America who were first capital before we made capital. And when we look at business, it can't help but be personal, and that we came over here on the balance sheet, and that we are wealth, and we have been creators of wealth for the moment we got here. And the goal for us needs to become wealth creators for ourselves. And that's a big thing that's ingrained in what we do here at Rise Urban Nation when we talk about run and building wealth for ourselves, that we are wealth creators in every essence of the word. And
Mm,
so how do we do that for ourselves? So
mm,
that's
mm,
why this one is really near and dear to my heart as well, and I'm sure and Shola's heart as well when we talk about wealth.
mm.
Let's transition to the pick. You got the pick on there.
Remember, again, hair. We talked about the Afro women and all of that, but the pick straight up is just hair. Like, take care of your Afro, guys. Stop getting rid of it and stop hiding it, or greasing it down or whatever we do. We need to be proud to wear this. Like, I mean, in my head, I was thinking, imagine one day where we have this massive like cultural event, and then we're encouraging, like, the dress code is what? Show your Afro. Like, literally,
Yeah.
like, and the pick is the only way you can come that thing.
Yeah.
To
Show
get it
your
put on
fro.
something. Yeah, show your pro. So that's basically because hair has been a major thing for us, in the Western society, where we've had to try and conform to what we are not.
Mhm.
And it's funny, like, I'm wearing braids and I feel so pretty in it because I feel like it really highlights, like, my face and all of that. Even when I have like hair that's not mine on, it has to be an
Mhm.
Afro hair. I don't know if you notice that my hair is always like the poofy kind.
Yeah.
It's never,
But
doesn't it has to represent me.
and it suits you. It looks
Yes.
beautiful on you as well, if
Thank
I
you
say.
very much. I appreciate
And
that. I realize that
and
now.
and the last one that I see on here that you've put is the hands in the heart with the plus sign.
Yes,
Tell me
this
about
is
that one.
health and community.
Okay.
So health is a major thing here. Like, when I hear that we are this what's that word? Oh gosh, like, we're dispositioned to have things like diabetes, heart disease, all of that. I didn't have these problems when I grew up in Africa. Even in England, I didn't
Mhm.
have this issue. But it's like, are we really taking care of ourselves? Mental,
Mhm.
physical, emotional. These things that matter so much, in our livelihood, and this and community as well. That are we taking care of our communities? It's so hard because
Mhm.
you see people who want to help the communities, but there's this saying, this African saying, where the preacher is never appreciated by his own village. And we can't
Mhm.
keep doing this. We can't, like, even what we want to do at Run, we've learned how to do this work in a healthy manner with boundaries. It means it will be
Mhm.
slower, but because we have seen others doing who go into community to do the work and they literally die doing it. So it
Mhm.
is so important that we look at the health of our minds, emancipating
Mhm.
ourselves from mental slavery, but Mali, so that's like one major
Mhm.
thing that we need to work on. Again, I keep coming back to our journal, but it was written for that purpose. When you go through our journal, it would change your mindset, right? If you're open to it, if you're looking for something wrong with it, well, you're gonna find it because that's how people are.
Mhm.
Who look for something wrong, they will always find it. But when you're looking at freeing your mind, freeing your soul, freeing everything that is holding you back, the major thing
Mhm.
that comes to the forefront is your health. What's going on
Yeah.
with you? And, like, we can do all these great things in the world, but we need to be present to appreciate it and also prepare. Like, when I say prepare, I mean, like, recession planning, right? Wealth
Mhm.
planning, wealth management, your legacy, what are you leaving behind? And I don't mean
Yeah.
living enough for people to be lazy, but living enough for your community to thrive. So that's why
Yeah.
we put the heart and the plus that looks like, that medical thing, and then the hands holding us all together.
And I think health is wealth, and especially when it comes to our community, there's a big aspect of the component to that. And I
Mm,
know, something that I've been pushing Shola on because we've both been on our wealth journey, especially when it comes to the health aspect of it, of getting to a point of just wellness, so that when we have the financial means, um, we have it in a way that's healthy, that we're not stuck battling all the things that really ravish our communities health wise, that could drain those wealth resources, right?
Mm,
So, and
mm,
also be in the uh, uh, a health mindset that helps us continuously build and accumulate wealth, right?
mm,
They
mm.
all coincide with each other. So thanks for breaking that down for us, that beautiful design that you've put together for us, Shola.
Thank you. You're
Let's end off with this. Um, there's a lot in the works that we're doing.
welcome.
And when you think about some of the current upcoming Afrofuturist things that's in the works, what are you excited about, and why do they stand out to you? I know one is what we're doing here with Run. We got the posters, we got the black drop, we got the shirts.
T-shirt.
So feel
Yes. So
free
the
to,
dog drop.
I know I'm biased. Feel free to speak on that as well.
Okay, so I want to touch on different things from product to events. So first of all, of course, would be what we just explained to you today, because people love the black drop. Like we even though
Yeah.
I knew it was awesome, I mean, but to hear it from other people who understand that the icons represent something in our community that needs to be worked on, just touches our heart, because that means you get it. We did the right thing. We got it. You know when you hit it like and it's right. That's what it means. So,
Hmm.
hey, guess what? We want to make this thing available. So, we want to hear from you. Yes, t-shirts are great, but what about notebooks? What about pencils? Like, we're having teachers asking us for that as gifts. So, we want to also make it available as wallpaper as well. So, you can literally walk into someone's office and guess what? They have the community wallpaper. So, that's the, excuse me, community black paper. I'm following Taryell's lead here, the black drop. Yeah. So we're gonna make this available to y'all. So please just be patient with us, on that. Then we are working on an Afrofuturism workshop. Yes, so 6-hour workshop we're gonna do. We're looking for partners that can work with us to deliver this to their audience. So yeah, so if this is something that you want on your rota with the workshop that you offer, guess what? Myself and Taryell will be delivering it together. So just like the feeling and vibe you get from our joint podcast is the same thing you're going to get throughout the workshop as well. So and last but not least is although this is not this year, it will be next year. We are working on an event for the next Black History Month, and this is going to be like a real amazing thing. And we are working with different people from around the world across the diaspora. So, hopefully look out for the notice on our newsletters. If you haven't signed up for that already, please do so. Look out for the page on our website, so that you can see when it's coming up so you can register, and we want to hear your ideas, because this is something that's going to be an annual thing for us, where we can connect with our family, with you all. And want to thank you all for just being a part of this journey with us, and validating in every single download, anytime you listen to it, anytime you share it, anytime you open our newsletter or emails, anytime you like us on
Hmm.
social media. We're very grateful that we're able to do this work. We are Afrofuturists. And this is something that is all about reimagining the future of us as a people. It will not go without criticism. That's going to happen, and we don't mind, because then it tells us what direction we're going in, whether it's right or wrong. But we're addressing all these things by working to create a more inclusive and socially just version of Afrofuturism, of us as a people, right? And to ensure that it remains a powerful tool for creating positive and social change. So yeah, so
Yeah,
that's basically
I
all
love
that's
that.
happening in our camp.
That and I'm gonna put this out here. If you're a brand, if you're a individual who's excited about bringing Afrofuturism to Black History Month next year in a
Man,
large
talk
world
to
stage
me.
event, hit us up, info@riseurbannation.com. I know we got our eyes on a couple of, if you know somebody at the UN, anybody working at the
Mhm.
UN, make
USA,
sure
African
USA hit us
Union,
up.
for Africa. Yeah.
Tony,
Aluminum. Yes. We're coming
yes.
in. We're putting it out there and manifesting this. Yes.
Yes, if there's anybody who has acquaintances or listening who can connect us, please, I beg of you, please, I beg. info@riseurbannation.com. Send us the
Oh,
email. Let us link up. Let us make this happen.
yes.
Because when we rise, you rise, we all rise. Thank
Together.
you for joining us for another episode of Rise Urban Nation, the Afrofuturism episode. Thank you,
Yes.
Shola, for creating such an amazing backdrop and walking the people through what all these different icons mean and how they can use that as inspiration in their lives as we try to make this the future and the wave of how we look and view ourselves and grow in the future. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome, bro. Thank you. Bye.
All righty. Bye.